George the Giant Slayer is a fascinating character, a former kidnap survivor who has become one of the most interesting new YouTubers in the pop culture space. And I like his tagline, which is that giant slayers themselves confront the false giants that loom large over life. And of course, a couple of those false giants who George has been slaying and certainly causing a lot of interest here in the United Kingdom is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And I'm delighted that George joins me now to discuss exactly what he has discovered. So, George, so great to have you on Outspoken for the first time. Your channel is brilliant. Now, what was it that first got you interested in this growing saga of Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and what has become, let's be honest, and I know we'll talk much about this, but what has become a Hollywood nightmare?
Well, first, thank you for having me on. Love your show. Love everything that you do and the way you stand up and fight. What got me interested is the fact that, we were raised by my grandmother honoring the British monarchy, because she was in Auschwitz for 3 years because she used to hide British soldiers during World War II. So we had the greatest respect for the monarchy. I started to notice pretty much after the wedding when they decided to leave, since it's been almost now, 5 years since Megxit.
Yes, 5 years since Megxit, almost exactly.
When they came to the US and they started involving themselves in cultural matters, I was like, this is the moment to talk about them, because they weren't trying to lead their private life. You know, the whole privacy tour, they didn't try to do that. They weren't going, well, we're going to go about our life, do our own business. They decided to insert themselves to lead this new type of woke revolution. And I was like, well, it's time somebody call them out, because they, to me, represent the pinnacle of the cultural rot that's going on in Hollywood that's trying to pervert Western culture.
Exactly. That's what's so interesting, isn't it? It's so much bigger, George, than just these two narcissistic human beings and all of the issues that they have. But do you get the sense, because I've obviously watched your videos where you talk a lot about the failure of the Netflix deal, for example, the flops, with your pop culture hat on, do you think they have a chance of revival now, or is it over?
I think everything now is the beginning of the end. I don't really see Netflix renewing their contract, except unless they are trying to wait for the eventual divorce. Look, no couple like this can succeed in life, let alone in Hollywood, when they're both competing against each other and when they both are basically megalomaniacs. Think about it. In Hollywood, you have a couple who are now following either together or separate. They're following their own paths. They come together every once in a while to do these publicity stunts. And now they've put on shows. You're talking about 4 failures in a row. The only success that they've actually ever had was the original Harry and Meghan series. And that's because that's exactly what Netflix wanted. They wanted someone who was going to come mudslinging for money against the royal family. That's not what they want to do. They use that to get their foot in the door. And afterwards, every other property has collapsed. I mean, the Netflix trailer for With Love, Meghan has one of the lowest views in Netflix's history for a YouTube trailer.
Dan Wootton calls Meghan Markle Harry's murder weapon against the monarchy. And honestly, it's hard to argue when you look at the facts. George the Giant Slayer lays it out. The way Meghan cut off her own father, ghosted him, trashed him, abandoned him, is the exact same blueprint Harry's used on his blood family. His father, his brother, his grandmother. Total betrayal. They claimed they wanted privacy. What did they do instead? Oprah interviews, Spotify podcasts, Netflix docuseries, tall memoirs. They didn't leave the royal family to find peace. They left to build a brand based on tearing it down.
Wow, so I don't think they're going anywhere,
isn't it? It is astonishing when you think of that. And all of the opportunities that they had and wasted. Why do you think they were never prepared to put the hard work in, though? Because I think probably one of the most damning criticisms, and certainly the final nail in their Hollywood coffin, was when Bill Simmons, who had been their boss at Spotify, came out and described them as effing grifters. Now, people like me had been reporting on their work-shy nature from within the royal family for years and years. But in Hollywood, you can't get away with that, can you? If you are getting these multi-million-dollar deals, or in their case, tens of millions of dollars of deals, you have to produce the content. And I mean, when it came to Harry and Spotify, there was one Christmas podcast where we heard literally a few words from him. That was it.
I know when it comes to the Meghans, the reality is they're entitled. They feel entitled. They're not people who work. You always hear that. When you had the holy Bibles of Hollywood from Vanity Fair and the Hollywood Reporter and Deadline call them out. I mean, that was, again, the end. That was the nail in the coffin. But think about it. You take somebody like Meghan, who was a D-list actress, without marrying Harry, would anybody know her today? That's the fact that a lot of people don't seem to address. Nobody would know her today. No one. Her career was over. She basically had a long stint of cameos. And when you actually look at it, and the research that I've been doing for another video, is when you look at her relationships, each one of her relationships coincides with the films or television shows that she was doing at the time, like with Trevor Engelson. She gets together with him when he makes his first movie, and all of a sudden, she ends up on a Disney property, an FX property for Fringe, ends up on Castle. It goes one after the other. He even put her in his own film. Once she reached the apex of what she thought she could get from him, she's like, okay, I'm going to go now. She was with Suits, and then she starts to strategize a way, in my opinion, to manipulate her way into Prince Harry's circle. Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, through Misha Nunu, and the rest is history. But no, I think they're pretty much done in Hollywood, and Hollywood has slammed the door shut on the couple.
See, that's what is very interesting to me, George, and I just want to dive in a little bit deeper to that. Was this a plot all along? Because I've done so much reporting that no one else did on Meghan's showbiz days, her entertainment days, because at that point, that was the world that I was operating in. I was in the space of entertainment and show business too. And so what I had discovered is that post-Trevor, Meghan had absolutely decided that she wanted to move to the United Kingdom. She had it in her head 100% that she was going to find a famous British bloke. Now, the types of famous British blokes that she was looking at, right, were long way down the Hollywood ladder. Really nice guys, but by the way, so this is not at all a slight on them. And I revealed all of these stories. She was going after Matt Cardle, who had won the X Factor in the year that One Direction competed here in the UK. She was going after Max George, a really nice guy who had had a bit of fame as the lead singer of the boy band The Wanted. She was going after Ashley Cole, who was a famous footballer over here, who was known as a bit of a love rat. Now, this was the level she was aiming at. So do you think she was almost chancing her luck when it came to Harry and trying to build those relationships with the royals or the minor royals, which, by the way, we should point out happened through the Soho House connection? That's where the Beatrice and Eugenie fit into the mix.
George shares something powerful. His family risked their lives helping British soldiers during World War II. They taught him to revere the monarchy. And now he's watching Harry and Meghan weaponize their royal connection to push woke narratives and tear down everything that institutions stood for. They didn't just leave for independence. They left to lead a cultural revolution against Western tradition, using their royal titles for clout while bashing everything royal. It's bigger than Meghan and Harry. They're symptoms of a Hollywood culture obsessed with destruction over legacy, emotion over duty, and grievance over gratitude. Netflix handed them a golden ticket, millions of dollars for content. And what did Harry and Meghan deliver? Barely anything. A docuseries full of complaints. A cartoon that never materialized. A Spotify podcast that got canceled after one season.
Correct. I don't think it was luck. I don't think it was happenstance. I think she was tactical about it. I think this is where a lot of people call her brilliant. I don't, because if she was actually brilliant, she would have everything she would want. She would not only be a star, she would be regarded as a real royal, but she isn't. I thought it was tactical. I thought it was strategic, because you have to look at the timing of it all. The way that she made these friendships with Misha Nunu, what door that opened up to, and going to Soho House, what door that opened up to. I thought this was a strategy all along. And I think their biggest problem is this is what keeps happening, to answer your previous question. They end up in Hollywood and they thought everyone was going to bow down to them, except in Hollywood, they have their own royalty. Except all of those people actually have to work their butts off to climb the ladder. And when everyone didn't bow down to them, they were shocked. So what you end up having is you have the Meghans view themselves as great whites, even though they're actually guppies, but in a pond filled with killer sharks, with killer whales. It just doesn't work. They want everyone to obey them. I mean, we saw it in all these reports, whether you want to call it girl number 40 from Deal and No Deal, and how she has temper tantrums and wants to be a tyrant. Or you have Harry in the letter that I believe is going to leak about Dr. Sophie Chandaka and the way that he demanded her to come to Meghan's defense. No, I think they believe everybody owes them something.
Yeah, I mean, there is absolutely no doubt that they have a track record of treating people terribly, of bullying. And another thing that I've learned, I guess, in my couple of decades covering very, very famous people, George, is that very often it's the most famous, the most A-list, the most successful who actually treat people the best. The people who tend to punch down, who tend to bully their staff, who tend to drive people into therapy, who are demanding, who are sending emails at 5:30 in the morning. Those types of people are often the ones who are desperately climbing the ladder and looking for a status that they feel like they deserve but don't have.
Oh, exactly. I mean, look at Keanu Reeves. He is famous for the fact of he is just a man who his job is acting. But how many times has he been caught with people like here? He was sitting on a park bench in New York City where someone sat next to me and they were hungry. He's like, here's my sandwich. Or going on a ride between airports because his flight was delayed on a van with a bunch of people. You have actors who are actually real, decent human beings, and they don't hunt for the spotlight. They don't set up paparazzi gigs. They're not looking for that. It's something that they love to do. It's their professional. That's it. When Meghan, look at it, with Love Meghan, for example, or her new podcast, do you see any Hollywood glitterati coming to her? Where's Beyonce? Where's Taylor Swift? She's talking to, what was it? One of them is, I think was today, is her, was it a hairstylist or a makeup stylist?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Katie Lee.
The list.
Katie Lee, who is the effectively colorist. She was Meghan's hair colorist, and she's running a business called Highbrow Hippie. And that's great. Good on her for trying to make something of herself. But the problem is, she is the hired help. And so you can tell in that podcast, George, that this is a woman who's utterly terrified of Meghan, who has to say, you're the most amazing person, everything's about you. And there's a really mortifying moment, actually, during the podcast where Katie sort of drops into the conversation that she's actually got a boyfriend, and Meghan is so horrified that she hasn't been told because it's always about her. And if you're always making it about her, if you're always making it about you, people don't feel like they want to share that sort of information with you.
Absolutely. Again, I go back to with Love Meghan. I think that series did more damage to both Harry and Meghan's reputation than anything almost they've ever done since the wedding and the Oprah interview, even Spare. The way that she was treating people, I mean, you could tell almost the editing was botched completely. But when she decides to make something for the cameraman, or when she puts the edible flowers on everything, and the way she's speaking about herself, or when she can't keep her origin story straight. I was a latchkey kid that grew up with fast food. You know, rewind back to 2016 when she was judging that competition for junior master chefs. And all of a sudden you had those where she's saying, oh, no, you know, you could be like me. I was raised on this California farm to fresh table food. It's like, which is it? And this is what continually happens. But the bigger that she gets, the more exposure she has. And no one can keep, you know, somebody who's lying all the time, they can't keep their story straight. And you start to see that this is not a human being. This is someone who's an empty mask. And they're going to continue to put on one mask after the other to reach their goals. I think that's what keeps happening.
George says it plainly. Netflix won't renew them unless they're banking on one thing, the eventual divorce. And you know what? He's not wrong. Because no couple this toxic, this competitive, and this fame-hungry lasts forever. Even Hollywood sees it now. The Sussex story isn't about success anymore. It's about slow, messy collapse. Let's be blunt. When you have two narcissists fighting for the spotlight, someone's ego gets crushed. Harry needs to be adored. Meghan demands to be worshipped. There's no room for compromise, only competition.
Oh, totally. I mean, the origin story thing is so shocking because what she's done is actually try to almost like exorcise the Markles from her life, get rid of these people because they're white and, they're sort of, I guess, what we in the United Kingdom would call working class, but I would call them good, honest, hardworking Americans who have made something of their lives, are upwardly mobile. But that wasn't the story that Meghan wanted. She knew what she needed to ensnare Harry was this story of cultural battles, of racism, which just wasn't actually part of her life. But look, before we go on, let's just have a listen. I'll get your reaction to the moment from her podcast this week with Katie Lee.
Be able to just live a completely new chapter and, perhaps it's with this new love of mine.
Yeah, I can't with you. That's so unfair because we have 9 minutes and all I want to do is ask about, is it the yes, it is, isn't it? It is! Okay. Well, this is very exciting.
Yeah.
He's very handsome.
I mean, so insincere, so inauthentic, but also so telling, wasn't it? That she hadn't opened up to Meghan about this new guy in her life. And you can tell that Meghan's immediate reaction is, I'm not happy for you. I'm annoyed. You should have told me this.
Right. I think that's, again, going to one of the biggest problems is today, this isn't the 1990s. I think that's her biggest issue. She's operating like this is 1995 to 2005. We're talking about peak. This is the peak age of the internet. And everyone today wants authenticity. They want you to be yourself. This is not about, let me put on a show. This is lifestyles of the rich and famous, where we're going to walk around and I'm going to show you all the lovely. No, they want to see those things, but they want to see what's under your skin, who you are, what moves you, what are your emotions, what drives you. And she continues to perform. When you're listening to her podcast, it doesn't sound like a founder who's trying to get advice from other founders. It sounds like someone who's pretending. What do I have to do today to get people to like me? How do I present this image? It's the same way when she told the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, well, you actually know when Harry isn't here, I feed the kids frozen dinners, frozen foods right out of there. No. This is, again, all an act. And
yes,
that hypocrisy.
Her whole life is one big act.
Yep. And that hypocrisy is what I think that's exactly what's enduring her. She's getting, in many ways, the closer that she gets to what she wants in her mind, being on television, being on a streaming show, being on a podcast, somewhere in the headlines every day, the closer, I believe, it comes to unraveling everything she wants.
So where does it go, in your view?
Well, I think eventually it's going to lead to a divorce because, like I said in the beginning, when we first started talking, how do you have a couple? Look, marriage is hard enough. But when you have a couple that's competing against one another, they may not call it that, but they're both vying for headlines for their own reasons. She wants it so she can become, a Hollywood queen because it's something she couldn't do in the United Kingdom. Harry wants to be able to show everybody in the world and probably his family at the same time, look what I've accomplished on my own. I didn't need anyone. When you have that happening, it is inevitable that they're going to break up. Today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, it's going to happen. When that happens, then we're going to start to see another layer come off. The real Meghan, where she's going to be talking about exactly the way she treated her father, because that's the example. She's going to do the same thing to Harry. Do you know what I suffered when I was married to him? That's what we're going to get.
Totally. And the guy should be terrified. I mean, how on earth can you stay with a woman when Vanity Fair, a mainstream media outlet that you should trust, is backing up what people like me had been saying for years, George, which is that Meghan is already shopping around the divorce book. That's the reason she hasn't written her own autobiography yet, because she doesn't want to have to write a book, George, where she says a whole load of positive things. about her husband. She needs to save that. And the problem is, I know a lot of people say, oh, Harry's stupid, he's been manipulated. But I mean, come on, wake up.
George calls it perfectly. Meghan is obsessed with relevance. Harry is desperate for validation. That's not a partnership. That's a PR disaster waiting to happen. And Harry, without the royal name, without the palace aura, he's just another celebrity clinging to memories of a title he chose to destroy. This is bigger than Meghan's Hollywood dreams. It's about how celebrity culture rewards those who attack tradition, family, loyalty, and duty.
It's hard to wake up. Look, you have She Who Must Be Obeyed and a ginger handbag. When someone's gripping that tight onto you, it's very difficult for him to wake up. But I also don't think he wants to wake up. I differ with many people where they say Harry has been duped. There's a level of that.
He wanted to be duped, though.
Yes.
That's the point.
I believe. Exactly, Dan. I believe that he married his soulmate. And what I mean by soulmate is he found a murder weapon to go after his family, to take out all of his envy, all of his bitterness. Yes. And I think that's what he enjoyed, but now he's caught up in it.
And how disturbing is that when your entire life is driven by revenge against the people who actually were so good to you for so many years? And it's not their fault that they happen to have a birthright that you did not. I find it extraordinary. But he's completely riven by bitterness and jealousy. And what's so interesting to me, I mean, I was never a fan of Harry, by the way. I'd covered him for a very long time, since about 2009, 2010, when he was with Chelsea Davy. That's when I first started writing about Prince Harry. I knew that what the public perception of Prince Harry was not the reality. But let's be honest, there's a lot of celebrities or famous people who are like that. And as long as they keep the poker face and as long as they listen to the people around them, it can work. What's so extraordinary to me is that Harry has become so open about his bitterness and his desire to destroy. And I find it unforgivable, if I'm honest, because if you're not going to be woken up by death, and by death, I'm talking about Prince Philip, the fact that they pushed on with that Oprah Winfrey interview knowing that he was on his deathbed, the late Queen Elizabeth II, the fact they pushed on with Netflix, they pushed on with Spare, despite the fact that she was suffering from very serious blood cancer, which he knew. And now King Charles, even your own father, receiving what is probably going to turn out to be a terminal cancer diagnosis. I mean, certainly Lady Colin Campbell has reported that the type of cancer that he's suffering from is incurable. Even that doesn't snap you out of the malaise. Well, I'm sorry, you're a bad person at that point. It doesn't matter if you were manipulated. It doesn't matter if you've been duped. This is on you.
100%. He's not a child. This isn't someone who is like, oh, I'm 15 years old and I was taken by this Black Widow. No, you hit the nail on the head. You look at the way someone treats their families. Actions speak louder than words. We go back to Hollywood, or when they're traveling around the world, when he's talking about climate change, how we can heal the world. But then he's, jumping from one private jet to another to go to a rock concert, to go to a birthday party. You look at the family. Why did he marry his soulmate who's a murder weapon against the monarchy? The way she treated her father is the exact same way that he's treating the royal family, his blood, his bone. When you had Queen Elizabeth, when she was sick, when she was unhealthy, and he knew this, what did they do? It's one of the things that I was always angry about during that ITV interview he did after Spare, where when the journalist asked him, it's like,
Tom Bradby.
Tom Bradby, like you were saying that the royal family were racist in that Oprah. He's like, no. The British press did that. I'm like, wait a minute. All he had to do was turn around and do one simple thing. Then why did you and Meghan go and pick up the Kennedy Award for standing up to structural racism against the royal family, the Ripple of Hope Award? That right there should have been it.
But come on. We knew exactly what they were doing. I mean, the day after the interview, because they were getting so much heat, specifically around potentially putting the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip through so much, They called up Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey and said, oh, just to be clear, the racist isn't the Queen or Prince Philip. So they were completely acknowledging this lie that there was a royal racist. And we know they were talking about Charles and Catherine, and we know that because Omid Scobie purposefully allowed it to be leaked via his book. So all of this has been an awful setup. But the thing is, they have been found out. And I'm also interested, just with your pop culture cap on, to talk about whether the downfall of Meghan also comes at the same time as the downfall of woke, and whether there's a connection between the two things. Because I saw you quite recently cover the Snow White debacle with Disney, and that has been a monumental disaster for Walt's company. It has ruined the legacy of one of their most famous and iconic films. It's lost them so much goodwill. It's been embarrassing. And I just wonder now if you're going to see these big companies, no matter how woke they might be, no matter how infected by that woke mind virus they are, actually just not want to take the risk.
George says Harry and Meghan are cultural weapons, deliberately used to erode the institutions that bind society together. Marriage, monarchy, patriotism, all seen as relics to be mocked or monetized. It's not about building a better world. It's about selling outrage for profit. And Harry and Meghan? They've built an empire on resentment. George's answer? Brutal but honest. It's over. Hollywood's not interested in the Sussexes unless they implode spectacularly. The public isn't buying their victimhood anymore. Their credibility is shattered. Their brand is toxic. The monarchy they tried to destroy? It will survive. King Charles, Prince William, the true heirs of service and dignity, they'll carry on. Harry and Meghan will fade into tabloid infamy. And trust me, it's already happening faster than they can spin the next PR story.
Well, right now, when you're talking about Snow White and Disney, inside Disney, through all the contacts that I have, and it's been reported in many places, you have kind of like a civil war going on. Those who want to continue down the woke path, want to stick with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which they're now trying to rebrand as belonging. And others are like, look, we have to get back to business, to giving customers what they want, which is to make them happy, which is to entertain them. But when you're talking about Snow White, you're talking about Rachel Zegler, who I swear must be the twin sister of Meghan. She does the exact same things. It's like, here is what I want you to do. I want you to go buy my product, which is buy a ticket and go watch the movie. But by the way, if you didn't vote the way that I wanted you to vote, you can go to hell. I mean,
you're evil.
You don't do that.
You're
evil.
I don't want you to have a moment's peace, Trump supporter. And we know that's what Meghan thinks. We know that's what Harry thinks. And we know, by the way, that's what they think about William and Catherine too. They don't want William and Catherine to have a moment's peace. I mean, what about the fact that when Catherine was suffering from cancer, and people like me were trying to say, you guys are going crazy because this is going to come out and she's not well, just stop. Yet Meghan and Harry never told their people to stop. They never told Stephen Colbert to stop spreading rumours. They never told the Sussex Squad to stop. They never told Christopher Boozy to stop talking about the fact that Catherine was faking all of these pictures and the fact that he believed the BBC announcement of her cancer was actually AI. They never once said just stop. And I do think that sums up the evil that is actually part of wokery. Woke people believe that they're spreading a message of kindness, but actually when you look at their actions, they are so often evil. And I think so much of what Harry and Meghan has done is evil.
100%. I think one day we have to talk about woke, like devote a time to it. I took 3 years and I wrote something called the Woke Monologues. It's a video that I put up where I break down everything that we went through over the last 10 years. And the key thing about woke, the woke mind virus, is they were what perpetuated it, what perpetuated this cult, this mentality, is they reached out with one message to the world. They basically said, every broken toy in the world, do you want to feel special? Then go out and break the world. That was what they did. This is about envy. This is about greed. This is about people who are either lazy, lost, broken, but who refuse to do anything about it. And they want someone to turn around and go, you want to be great? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be regarded in history as doing something? Help us rip everything down in the world.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could have been powerful, positive forces for change. Instead, they became cultural cautionary tales. A warning about what happens when grievance becomes your brand and betrayal becomes your business plan. The monarchy will endure. Harry and Meghan, they'll be just another Hollywood tragedy. That's it for today's breakdown. Was Meghan really Harry's murder weapon against the monarchy? Did they destroy themselves chasing fame? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you're tired of the victim narrative, and subscribe for more real talk without the sugarcoating.